You may know the old joke, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. John Dickerson takes note of the music of pianist Jeremy Denk.
That's a very good cheese, you know. You could have a more French cheese, you know. But then, you know, sometimes you want a good old German cheese.
Why is this man at the piano talking about cheese? Because classical pianist Jeremy Denk is trying to put his finger on classical music. And he knows that means more than putting his fingers on the keys.
It's a charming waltz.
Denk, an award-winning pianist, is the author of Every Good Boy Does Fine, a performer's love song to the craft of the thing piano students usually hate: practice.
Ooh, I have to play that next week.
Young Jeremy's first musical lesson took place not at the piano, but on the sofa of his boyhood home in New Jersey.
One of my father's favorite pieces was the Saint-Saëns Symphony No. 3, the Organ Symphony. About 3/4 of the way through the piece, where the orchestra is diminuendoing, my dad called me up to the couch. He was like, listen, and we're listening, you know? And then suddenly this organ comes in with the loudest C major chord ever. And my dad looked over at me and he said, holy crap.
So you say it's your first musical lesson. What did you learn?
The sheer joy of surprise in music, and I think that was part of what we shared on the couch there.
Having felt the connection between music and emotion, head and heart, Denk, age 10, had to learn to settle his hands.
We moved to New Mexico, and I had a new teacher at the New Mexico State University, William Leland.
Together, they kept a notebook, marking his progress. Through the drawings in your book, he seemed to have an aptitude for communicating with a 10-year-old.
But I was a weird 10-year-old also, you know, a little bit like, you know, partly 10 years old and partly 50. And he was very determined to build me a technical foundation so that I could actually realize some of the things that I was trying to do musically. He made me play, he thought my thumbs were weak, which they were. So you had to think about, keep your hand quiet and bring your thumb like a little crab under the hand, right? And then go further, and then go a little, and then go further, right? He made me do this for, oh God, unbelievable hours. You know, it's even traumatizing me right now to think about, to play it. And it seemed like the most miserable possible enterprise. You know, like the whole point of piano lessons was to drain all the pleasure from music that, you know.
Why didn't it drain all the pleasure out of it for you?
It did at moments, but then, you know, I would listen to some piece and then, you know, like, oh yes, this is what music is for.
Do you feel any fellow feeling with Olympic athletes? They've done all the kinds of practice that you write about and that you do, and then the moment comes. Is that similar at all?
It's so similar that I can barely watch Olympic competition.
Denk's love of music grew, despite the hours of practice, leading to a bout of evangelical fervor on the bus to school.
I was not a fan of popular music in those days. I was an extremely elitist little brat, you might say. And I thought, you know, people need to learn that there's something better out there to listen to.
So he stuffed a cassette player in his backpack, got on the bus, and pushed play.
The conversation like slowly comes to a halt and people are looking around, you know, with this horrible, you know, like, what is that terrible smell, you know?
As skilled in the classroom as at the piano, Denk left for the prestigious Oberlin Conservatory of Music at age 16. There, he found teachers who pushed him almost as much as he pushed himself. Is there something intrinsic to the teaching of classical piano that requires hard teaching?
There is a long tradition of mean, you know, abusive teaching. You know, even the teachers that were meanest to me, I'm still assuming they did it, you know, because I needed it, in a way. But sometimes they didn't realize what a sea of anxiety and insecurity I was, you know, underneath.
Dank won the highly competitive senior concerto competition at Oberlin and was set to move to his next teacher in California. But after hearing George Schabuck, he moved to Indiana instead to study under him.
I never really loved Bach until that moment. The way he played that, moving his hands so smoothly and beautiful, but also with this little smile, and that you felt that his smile, physical smile, was also present in the notes too, that the music had this beatific quality, but also this sense of play. And I don't think many of my teachers had told me to play with play yet. I think I so desperately needed what Schabuck was offering at that moment, that I needed a sense of the wider purpose of piano playing and some sort of also this European perspective. What is the emotional meaning? Like the musical score is like a treasure map, you know, telling you, you know, here's how you create this piece, you know, here's how you bring it alive, here's how you do it. And it's not a misery, but it's a beautiful guide.
The mixture of technique and play has won Dank critical acclaim, including a MacArthur Genius Grant. He now tours the world, playing with great orchestras and classical music superstars like Joshua Bell. Practicing now a joy in itself. How long can you go without practice? What happens if it gets into about the middle of the second day?
It's like an itch. Maybe it's an addiction in a certain way, you know, like I feel my fingers start to do things, you know, and I can't sit still. It's that act of translating through the body that I somehow need, yeah, to feel complete. I'm happy to play excellently. I'm very, you know, soothed when I feel I've played well as a pianist, but I'm much happier if I feel that something of that quality when I'm practicing gets transferred to everyone in the room.
You've given them something.
Yes, which is allowing the audience in, but also allowing the music to speak and allowing the time to feel generous.
It's the kind of generosity that Dank felt 46 years ago on that couch in New Jersey. And after countless lessons and hours of practice, he can now give a similar lesson just by sitting down to play.